Good morning, Fabio Ronetti, covering the week of September 23rd through the 27th. And first of all, Shana Tova, Happy Jewish New Year. That's going to be tomorrow. Many of you will be on vacation. The markets are open, but again, this is the Happy New Year for everybody. So the word of last week was impeachment inquiry, meaning that the House of Representatives have started an inquiry into the possibility of impeachment of President Trump. It's all related to allegedly putting pressure on the president of Ukraine to try to get some dirt on Mr. Joe Biden. That's kind of the short and dirty. We'll get to that later on. But the market just had a second week dropping. The Dow was down 114 points or 0.4%, very little. The S&P 1%, but the Nasdaq suffered a little bit more, 2.2%. And we're still a few points away from the all-time record. The market is up 20. S&P is up 20% for the year. So don't worry too much. Tomorrow is the last day of the third quarter. We get into the fourth quarter. And honestly, we will not know much until mid to end of October, excuse me, in which we will have the earnings of the companies. Remember, September was a month loaded with a lot of issues. The Fed, the European Central Bank, OPEC, UN. We didn't get nothing definitively new. The only thing that we have left for October is the start of the Chinese-American negotiations that this week, again, we had more baby steps on the right direction, the exclusion of soybeans from the point of view of the Chinese and some other comments. And there was a rumor that the U.S. was thinking of not allowing the Chinese to access the listing in U.S. markets. And then basically the Treasury came and flat out denied that there was anything of that sort. So baby steps here and there, moving in the right direction. So the main thing is we need to wait until the numbers in October. How the companies report on the third quarter will start probably somewhere mid-October around, remember the banks always start around the 12th, 15th of October, and then we'll go. The first one of the big ones that we like, the report is Netflix on the 16th. We will discuss more on that during the week, but for now, just wait and see. The IPO window has closed basically for business models that it is growth at all costs with no visibility of earnings ever. Lyft, WeWork, Uber, Slack, and the last victim was Peloton on Friday. Price at the top of the range was down to 11%. The CEO said that the company will not be profitable until the year 2023 at least. And this is a gym company that sells a very expensive bike. Very interesting. But think about what's the multiple that gyms usually trade on, and if you are active doing exercise, are you going to do spinning and nothing but spinning all day? Sounds a little bit too much. For someone like is relatively active, like myself, doing workouts, you want variety. Go to the gym, go to the trainer, play some sports, whatever. Doing just one thing is a little bit boring. Look at all the fads that we've seen in the past that were great, from Jane Fonda videos all the way to whatever, they are gone. So again, the market has lost patience for these unicorns and all that. Also, in WeWork, they fired the founder and CEO. More and more strange stories are coming out about his behavior. A lot came about on the IPO about leases and the $60 million golf dream, the dedicated chauffeur with a Maybach Mercedes-Benz that cost $250,000 for a company who's talking about share the economy, race consciousness, and all those kind of words. Not really a cool idea. So I think thankfully and beautifully the market is very selective. It's not irrational. That's a good sign that the market is not going to swallow anything and everything. Argentina, finally, it's official. The IMF says no money for you until probably after the elections. We'll get more clarity. Argentina blew through some of the targets. That gives the excuse to the IMF not to give them the extra $5.4 billion. I will see. Probabilities of Mr. Macri to win the elections are very small, 10-15%, but these are the same pollsters that told us that things were almost equal. So we'll see what happens. We're on standby. We're not getting there. Yes, the equities are very cheap. Many of you have asked us about that. But remember, in these crisis situations, you sell what you can, not what you want. So if things get worse and you have the leaks or letters and those things are frozen by the government, you won't be able to sell them. So, that's kind of learn the lesson. We wait and see until the election. Aramco. Oil was down for the week on the news that Aramco is full back on production, or at least looks like. It's not going to be a big delay. And look like we're going to get the company is going to announce the IPO on October to go public in November in Saudi Arabia and next year Q1 in London and New York. It will be the largest company ever listed, $2 trillion of market cap, at least $200 billion IPO, the largest ever and ever. And if you think about only there's two companies in the world with Microsoft and Apple that has a market cap of 1 trillion. This is like 2 or 3 trillion. Remember, Aramco is the largest oil producer in the world as a single company. That's about 11 million barrels a day. The largest that follows is ExxonMobil, which does 4 million barrels a day as a comparison. So that's very interesting. I think it will be very, very interesting if we have a company of that size going public in the world. I think it will be very, very interesting. In Latin America, Delta announced on Friday that was going to buy 20% of LAN, the largest airline in Latin America, for $2 billion, 1.9. So basically almost giving a valuation of $10 billion to LAN, which is a very profitable airline. And now Delta will become the largest airline in the US and in the Americas. And let's go back to the impeachment noise. Very, very unlikely unless new things happen, because you need simple majority in the House of Representatives, but 2/3 majority in the Senate, which is already controlled by the Republicans. So most likely, not much is going to affect. The markets will do more like a Clinton type, in which they knew that it was never going to change much, and Clinton got impeached, and the market kept on rallying 33% a year after the impeachment. Here, so far, looks like the biggest loser is Mr. Joe Biden, because in this whole thing that President Trump says, take a look at it, it comes out that Joe Biden's son was a director of a very unknown energy company out of Ukraine, that it was paying him $85,000 a month, and that's almost like $1 million a year. As a comparison, a director of a public company like Facebook or Google, you have a lot of responsibilities to shareholders, etc., makes $200,000-300,000. So this guy was doing 5 or 6 times more than a regular director on a company that no one knows, while his father was the vice president of the United States. So Elizabeth Warren's now looks like it's going to be the winning probably candidate of the Democrats. So this might be the case of the Bill Clinton impeachment, that the biggest losers ended up being the Republicans back then. Here, the biggest losers might be ended the Democratic Party. It's very unlikely that people will vote for Elizabeth Warren, which is very far left. She wants to break up the technology companies, control more on the banks, free healthcare for everybody. So the business people are not going to be happy if that's a nomination. But again, so far, the biggest loser seems to be Mr. Joe Biden. We'll see, things can change, but that's where we are. That's all we have. Like always, every day, 8:45 a.m., live out of New York for our clients, subscribers. Have a great week. We'll connect the next weekend.